All right, yes, I believe we're on and we're live. Welcome, everyone. This is unusual, but instead of doing a separate recording for the answers to the Patreon questions and the Subscribe Star questions, I'm going to be doing them live because Heather and I are going on vacation. And the chat is back. Rainbow Asteroid says, I thought Tim was on vacation. Almost there. Just trying to finish up everything. I've got a whole bunch of videos queued up that I really hope you'll enjoy. So, this will be interesting. We have Darth Vega joining us. How are we doing, Darth?
Doing just fine, Shane. How are you?
And you are Josh Havins, so you have a question, and this will be nice when we get to that.
That's me.
And we've also got, which is the other Darth, Chris. He is delivering pizzas and doesn't know when he'll be home. So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of skip over his question and do it later, just in case he comes in. And then we can do it when his is online. Let's see, we got Darky, Rainbow, and JC Armitage in the chat so far. Yes, not that many people so far, but we'll see. We'll see who comes in. Scorch is here. Hello, Scorch. Yes, the chat is back. I'm doing the old live thing. I have no idea how to get the chat to show up on this thing in the new one, but there is one quick thing before we get started, because this is for the weekend of the 4th, and I don't really have any other way of letting you know, but you've heard me on the podcast do promos for the Tuttle Twins book, or books. There's a bunch of them. If you're interested in those, they're doing a July 4th sale. I have a special link in the description, my affiliate link you can click on and get 75% off, including a brand new book they have about the Declaration of Independence. So, especially if you have kids and you don't want to leave their political education, up to your government schools, then you can just get those books, and they're really amazing. So, help raise the next generation. And Rainbow Asteroid says, whoa, this stream hasn't been demonetized yet. That's cool. We'll see how it goes. All right, well, why don't we go ahead and go in with the questions, and we'll start with yours, Josh, since you're here. You're asking, is it justified to take a life with a firearm if someone is trying to steal your personal property? How far can one go to protect their property? Also, for the next AMA, can you respond to a 48-minute video? If you're too busy for that, I'll ask a different question. So, second one first there. I haven't really gone into how the production on video responses go, but typically what I'll have to do is I watch the video and kind of take notes as I go and the places I want to respond to. And then there's generally research involved, and then there's writing the final script. And then there's, recording it and editing and getting it up. Basically, if I do that for like a 20-minute video, it's probably a good 4 or 5 hours of work, if not more. So a 48-minute video is generally a bit longer than I'm willing to tackle, because that's a few days of solid work doing one that long. I mean, even with what's that?
I totally understand. That's why I asked, just to be sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if we tried to do it just on a live stream, just pausing every so often. Hello, Wes. But just pausing it every so often and just going through it straight, it would probably still be like a 3-hour live stream, if not more. So, I mean, it just takes a lot to respond to these things. Okay. So, to the first part of your question, is it justified to take a life? And this is something that, Scorch, you're having kids, congratulations. Are they in the oven, or are you just planning on it? Or so, getting back to Josh's question, the kind of misconception is people say, well, the response has to be proportional, as though this is about some kind of balance in the universe or something like that, and you can only justify lethal force to, defend from lethal force. That's not actually how it works when you work out the ethics from first principles. You can do whatever force is necessary to stop the infraction, but no more. So even if someone is trying to use lethal force against you, if it doesn't take lethal force to stop them, then lethal force isn't justified. On the other hand, if it is a property crime, but the only way to stop them is by lethal force, then you got to do what you got to do. So that's really about what it is.
So, they imagine they've taken something of yours, they're running away from you, I would imagine at that point you can't just shoot them in the back.
Oh, I mean, there's like 1,000,001 details that you would have. I would imagine that depending on what it is, it would be better to just, let them go and file a suit against them or something. Because even in an anarcho-capitalist state, you have something like a DDRO or something, some way to reclaim your property or the monetary value of it or something. Yeah, so in a situation like that, it would not be justified to use lethal force. And so we just did Josh's, which is cool because he's here. I'm skipping over Chris's in case he can make it in later. He was basically working until 7 his time, which is basically when we started the stream. And these things work. They might work him 10, 15 minutes over or whatever. He's a pizza delivery guy, so that's how it goes. Then he'd want to get home and he might want to, kind of relax a bit and come on. So maybe he'll be on in an hour or so. And if so, we can do his questions with him on. If not, we'll just shoulder through. But I mean, we can put that off and go to the one from Ali Adeeb. And he said, Joe Rogan said, you can't have a totally free market free of government regulations. This is because when he worked in construction, he saw a lot of corner cutting. He argues that with no government involvement, there would be a lot more. Is there a good reason to doubt this would be the case? He did give a link to the video. I did not have a chance to watch it. I am sorry about that. Otherwise, I'd be able to respond more intelligently to what he said, but I don't know the details of his argument or what he experienced. But, I mean, the first question I have is, was he doing government work? Because where do you find corner cutting more than in government work? Am I right?
Agreed. Mm-hmm. Unless there's some kind of, state protectionism involved that, allows you legally to get away with corner cutting in a bad way. But then again, that's just government, once again, just another pathology.
Well, and they're spending other people's money. I mean, if you're hiring construction people to do something you want, you're going to try to make sure they don't do stuff like that. Like when they were building my house, I was kind of going over there just every day just to look at things and make sure. This wasn't an example of corner cutting. It was just a dumb thing. With the way they had positioned the nozzle where the shower head would go, and I'm 6'3", the shower nozzle would basically have been aimed at my chest. And I can't take a shower like that. And I'm like, no, this isn't going to work. You got to make it. And they came back with, well, that's the standard height. And I said, yeah, well, I'm not. And finally, I had to go, look, I'm paying you. I'm the one giving you money. Do it the way I want it. So, most of them were good about it, but that guy, for some reason, I don't know. But, I mean, that's the thing. When you're spending your money, you're going to want to make sure that they don't do that corner cutting.
Always right.
Yep. On the other hand,
if you can't follow that, then you can't. Then we don't need to discuss. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. On the other hand.
Is there a good book on the concept of DROs? Because I don't know really much about how they would actually...
There's just been a lot of speculation. I know Disenthrall has covered them a lot, which is a great channel. Everyone should go and check out.
Oh, he's an excellent channel. I agree.
Yeah, Patrick Smith and what's the other guy's name?
Bitbutter actually has done some good work on it, I think.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I'm trying to go off of memory.
But the other point about corner cutting was that if they're doing something that's, quote unquote cutting corners and you don't mind, is it really corner cutting or is it just being efficient and giving you what you want? Because, I mean, if you don't, particularly mind, then, they're just being efficient and they're doing the work at a price you can afford while maximizing their profits. So, all right, so we'll come back to Chris's in a little bit. Over on Subscribestar, Xaon, I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. He has one that's, I think, is going to kind of spark a little bit of discussion. And if you'll give me a second to make it bigger on my screen, because this type is really small. Okay. Yeah, he's asking how to handle contract agreements in scenarios that could not be foreseen, which is a tricky part, but that's why you have principles. You can go back to first principles and work out what to do. So he gives a couple of cases, and this is probably where most of our discussion is going to be in. The first case, when a scenario literally could not be foreseen, example, when renting space for business, owners will tell you that the price is high because they are offering not only space, but also the business opportunity that comes with that particular location, so it's a good location for foot traffic or whatever. But when human malware kicked in, many, if not most, of landlords turned their backs and told that they are just renting space. And this is what the contract states. Shouldn't it be that landlords, as the owners, are at least somehow responsible for protecting their place and maybe even surroundings so it will work as advertised? That would have to be written into the contract. So, I mean, if you've got a contract that they're just renting space, it could still be the case that they're able to demand that higher price because of the foot traffic or whatever, because, if you're not going to rent the space, they'll be able to find someone, who'll rent it at a higher price. So, I mean, those are really two different concepts that you're conflating. The price, which is supply and demand, and the contract, which is their actual obligation. What do you guys think about that?
I have to go do some stuff. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Oh, that's cool. What about you, Vega?
I'm just a little confused as to what the question is asking here.
So the question is asking, like, you've got a contract that you're just renting space, but the price is high because there's some kind of business opportunity there. I just threw in, foot traffic as an example. He didn't, particularly specify that. But let's say this place has a lot of foot traffic, and so that's, a high price, and so you contract them to rent for that price. And I'm not exactly sure what he means about human malware, but I don't know if he's talking about, vandalism or whatever, or if he's just talking about the fact that you're not getting the foot traffic that you're promising. But when that happens, the landlords just say, hey, we're renting the space. We're not responsible for anything else. So
sounds like a buyer beware type.
Yeah. Like I said, there's two different things, the price that it's going for and what they've contractually agreed to. All right. He has a second case, or she, I'm not actually sure of the gender there. Sorry if I misgendered you. Second case, when inability to foresee, pretty sure English is not his first language, so I'm trying to kind of read around that. When inability to foresee was due to lack of knowledge and experience. Example, you signed up a contract to develop a small game. During the process, the amount and type of feedback and requests are way beyond what you have expected. Yep, scope creep, been there, done that. It is even possible that the other side abuses the contract to push you into terminating it and pay the termination fee. Been there too. Though it could also be the other way around, that the developer created a game that's way below expectations, but they refuse to fix it, claiming they fulfilled their part of the contract, and all complaints are based on overinterpretations. This is why it's good to make a clear statement of work with the goals and what the different parts are. I mean, that was just the so many times whatever business partners I've had at the time, have loved having that, because the client comes back, well, hey, there's some great stuff in here. I want this and this. It's like, okay, well, that's out of scope of the contract. Let's build out what we have, and then we can talk about adding on all these additions for additional money. And so, I mean, if you've got a clearly written statement of work, that's that would really help you out there. And I mean, if you didn't do that, if you made a sloppy contract, well, that's kind of on you, isn't it? Personal responsibility here. And yeah, abusing you and pushing you into terminating it. Yeah, they had a couple of clients once they actually tried bringing us into court, even after they totally just blew off their side of the contract and just didn't do any of the things they said they were going to do. They took us to court for some screwy reason. I mean, it was small claims court. We weren't talking about a whole lot of money, but even still, they got this big shyster lawyer in there to try and snow us, but the magistrate was having none of that. So yeah, I've been there and I sympathize, but I don't think it's going to be better without government, and I think it's going to be, make sure you write a good contract and write a good statement of work and make sure what's in scope and what's out of scope. Because scope creep will get you.
Whenever I encounter government apologists, I'm like, what has these specific government agencies ever done to improve your life personally? Like, when's the last time you thanked the ATF for coming in and taking a bunch of people's guns?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, something like we're seeing now. I don't remember if this was on a podcast or one of the videos I did, but at some point I was talking about the small farmers who have been trying to step in and cover for the beef.
Oh.
And we've the big plants aren't able to get enough beef out there because they have to make sure they're not contaminated. They have to test their employees, and if their employees test positive or symptomatic, then they have to stay home. Things like that, so they're not able to meet demand. Well, there's all these local farmers with all this livestock, and they come in and say, "Hey, we'll do it." They can't because they're not in the USDA system, and that's the problem because that favors the big farms, and it's hard for the little guy to get into that, even in like this national emergency situation. All right, if there's nothing else on this question, then I guess we'll go back and deal with Chris's. And I'm sorry he would miss out on participating in this, but this is something we've talked about before. He asks, how come in a lot of dystopian sci-fi novels, while the writer does a good job at showing the tyranny of big government and Orwellian spying, why do so many sci-fi authors say in their novel, the solution to this problem is socialism?
Yeah,
I think it's just because they don't know economics.
Well, I always look at like Star Wars, Han Solo, and like he's got illegal guns. He's doing all these anarchy things, and
he's a rogue.
Yeah.
Clashpride says Bolivar more like toilet paper / kindling. No, I think toilet paper is worth more because people were trying to buy toilet paper with Bolivar and they couldn't. It's like, just use the Bolivar. Well, it's not as good as one. It's not even good for toilet paper. Yeah, and I think also socialism is kind of easy. It's very simplistic, which is why it doesn't work in the real world. But, actually setting up a situation where people have developed solutions through spontaneous order, that's a lot more difficult to do. I mean, science fiction writers have done it. L. Neil Smith did a really good job of in The Probability Broach.
Down with capitalism, but give me my latte, give me my Big Mac.
Yeah.
Give me my car.
Yeah.
My Apple computer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's not just novels, but movies as well. I think they just don't know how to conceive of anything else. But I mean, socialism, as we've seen, leads to big government and Orwellian spying. In fact, it's funny you said Orwellian, because 1984 was a socialist government. That's what INGSOC stood for, English socialism. So
I really need to read.
Finally, I've returned. I
Yay.
had run my cat. I'd run my dog back over to my yard because he was taking shit from the neighbors, and I was really no.
Yep.
And I had to run a couple cats off from over there, so that's another no I had to correct. And then I had to fight a cat who tries to steal your food when she gets on the counter. God, Tiger Lily is so bad.
That's why I don't have cats. I don't like cats. As for the dog, that's why I have a fenced-in backyard. Just let him out. The moon is a harsh mistress. Yeah, that's a good one. Except that society didn't really last very long. And man was thinking at the end about, well, maybe the asteroids would be a nice place to move to. Because no sooner, did they fly their Tonstoffel flag that they were already thinking about how to make a bigger government. So, yeah. Hey, Wes, what we were talking about was the tendency of sci-fi authors to say that, okay, here's this problem with big government and Orwellian spying. Why do they keep saying the solution is socialism?
Yeah. That's never about a political power. That's not a bad Bronze Age ideology. No.
I mean, it's hard to build out a world like that. If you go to the Discord, Mystic Jojo talks about how they try to build out worlds and think through it. And I mean, it's a lot of thought and planning that goes into it. And I think socialism is just something that they can just take a shortcut doing. Which, I mean, from a storytelling aspect is fine if that's not actually the purpose of the story. If the story is not what kind of world they make as a solution, but what happens to the characters and things like that. If that's not your focus, there's nothing wrong with formulaic storytelling as long as the formula you're working doesn't interfere with the actual storytelling that you're doing.
Yeah. Pretty interesting subject.
Yeah. Well, and it's like if you make a bad guy, and the bad guy is just this cartoonish guy, and you say, well, that's not a very well thought out character. Well, I mean, if you're wanting the bad guy to be a real character that interacts and does things, then yes, that would be a bad way of doing it. But if the bad guy is just a MacGuffin, if he's just there to kind of get the other players doing their thing, then it would probably make sense to not spend a whole lot of time establishing it, because it's not really important to what you're wanting to do. Hey, we got a super chat from Clashpride. Eccleston hasn't popped up yet, but he will in a minute. Yeah, there he is. Yeah, $10 from Clashpride. Thank you so much for that. The question is, how do you think is the best way to achieve a stateless society? I know that you were a big guy on a lot of campaign trails, but I want to see if you changed your mind. Well, we talked about this earlier. It's just about really building out the alternatives. We've been doing a lot of that. We have cryptocurrencies as an alternative to fiat money. The more we build out alternatives, I think the time is ripe now for people saying, okay, we need an alternative to the police system. Not just simply defund the police, which is a meaningless mantra, but saying, what are the things that we can do to actually say, hey, we want our tax money to go to these other guys because you're doing a crappy job. The more we can build in competition and take away the government's monopoly power, that's really the problem. It's the government's monopoly power. It has
and everybody and all the left-wingers that rant on corporations, I said, I hate to bust your bubbles, but one, a liability levying entity is going to show up in a stateless society, but the problem is it's created and offered by government, and it gives perks that can loophole the law of the land, which these modern ones are. That point, it goes far back as the book Modern Corporation and Private Property, how corporate manager staffs can bridge with bureaucracy and gradually rip private property over time and disperse it out. And through legal policies and lobbying and bribing as well, which politicians are legally able to do, which is crock. And
I mean,
but it's all government at its core. It's not the business. It's the fucking government creating an entity that's at the expense of the laws of the land and of the people in the society, not the businesses themselves. When you give someone the incentive, they're going to use it, and even if it's shitty.
Well, and you have these same people saying, oh, well, monopolies are bad, like Standard Oil, which was never a monopoly and was arguably a net good for society. But that's a monopoly and that's bad. But government making your local power company a monopoly, your local cable company a monopoly, your fire department is a monopoly. Why are those monopolies good? monopoly on police, monopoly on courts, monopoly on, I mean, look at all the police stuff that's going on now. If people had the ability to say, you know what, the portion of my taxes that's paying the police department, you don't get that tax money anymore. I've got it. I'm going to go give it to, this other police or security organization or whatever it is to protect my property. I mean, if you think about
3D printers to get around gun laws.
Well, yeah, that's another example. But specifically with the cops, I was thinking, like with the George Floyd thing, or even just the thing we've covered so often, they think you have a few ounces of a plant, so they bust through your door and shoot your dog. Who would pay for that? I mean, no one would pay for that. So, I mean, if we just had the ability to say, no, I don't like what you're doing with my money, I'm going to take it somewhere else. So I think that would be the best way. And as far as accepting the nap, I don't think that's not... It's kind of a straw man to say, oh, well, this will only work if everyone accepts the nap. No, it won't. It doesn't require people to accept the nap. It's just that if you violate it, you're in trouble. So, all right, well, I think we're going to leave it there. Thanks to Wes and Darth for participating in it. Thanks for everyone who did in the chat. Thanks for the super chats. I know Clashpride was one. I don't remember. Was it Rainbow who did the other one? Rainbow Asteroids? No, I don't think that was it. I don't remember, and it's not on my screen anymore. But whoever it was, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who asked questions. This was pretty good. It took, I think, a little over half an hour to answer the questions, and the rest is just us conversing. But yeah, we've got these questions answered. So if you'd like to ask a question for next month, just sign up for Patreon or Subscribe Star at the $3 level or higher. You'll see the post I put in there for the AMA, and you just ask your question in a comment, and I will get to it next month. When I get back from vacation, we will do the proper live stream benefit for all Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters. Until then, enjoy all the different videos I have queued up. Please let me know if you like that format, because I think I'm getting pretty good at it, and I might add it in along with the Lord Killian videos and everything else. I think the Lord Killian videos, they still get the most views of any of the other videos, but on the other hand, I can probably do a couple of these a week, maybe 3. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I will see y'all when I get back from vacation. Thank you so much for watching. Donate.Dopagosity.tv. Please go there and give any, even tiny amounts via cryptocurrency are most welcome, because that all adds up. And that's also where you get the links to join Patreon and Subscribe Star, all at Donate.Dopagosity.tv. Thank you for watching, and until next month, stay strong and be free.